the latest updates from the G7 Leaders Summit.
Hello and welcome. I'm Asuma Katauka and you are watching NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top stories. Iran vows more devastating strikes after deadly attacks on Israel, which responded by targeting Iranian missile sites. As tensions rise, Iran rejects talks under fire. Trump backs Israel but suggests a fight may be inevitable, while the EU calls for a negotiated solution. A 57-year-old suspect posing as a police officer has been arrested for the politically motivated killing of Minnesota Democratic lawmakers Melissa Hortman and her husband, as well as for shooting State Senator John Hoffman and his wife. Police have also found 3 AK-47s, a 9mm handgun, and a list of public officials in suspect's SUV. French President Emmanuel Macron, the first foreign leader to visit Greenland since Trump's annexation threats. He vowed strong EU ties, faster metal cooperation, and rejected Greenland's sale, questioned Russia's role in Iran-Israel crisis, and backed Arctic military drills. Trump orders an immigration crackdown focused on Democratic strongholds, calling for expanded detention and deportation efforts in major cities like Los Angeles, Chicago, and New York. 4 armed men stormed Mayor Lilia Garcia's office in southern Mexico City today, killing her and a staff member and wounding 2 police officers after threatening security at the scene. A 6.1 magnitude earthquake struck near Lima, Peru, killing 1 person, injuring 5, and triggering landslides, according to officials. While no tsunami warning was issued, the quake caused panic and prompted President Boluarte to urge calm in the nation. EU Chief Ursula von der Leyen says Netanyahu has promised to boost aid into Gaza as Israel identifies the second hostage body recovered last week as Aviv Atzili kidnapped during Hamas' October 7, 2023 attack. As G7 leaders met in remote Kananaskis, hundreds protested peacefully in Calgary over Gaza U.S. influence and climate issues, with their messages live streamed to the summit. US President Donald Trump and other world leaders have arrived in Canada for the G7 summit, where the intensifying Iran-Israel conflict is expected to top the agenda. On the sidelines of the summit, Canadian Prime Minister also met British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, and the German Chancellor Friedrich Merz. With Starmer, Carney is said to have discussed the tensions in West Asia and their support for Ukraine. They also announced further collaboration on trade and technology. They also agreed to strengthen defense cooperation. Ramaphosa and Carney are said to have agreed to enhance economic cooperation between the 2 states, with Australian Prime Minister Albanese furthering partnerships on critical minerals was discussed. Both leaders vowed to deepen their bilateral relationship. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese will meet US President Donald Trump for the first time in Calgary. On the sidelines of the G7 summit, talks are expected to focus on tariffs and the US snap review of the AUKUS nuclear submarine deal with Australia. Now we have guest Ambassador Ashok Sajan. He's a former Indian diplomat. He's joining us live. Thank you for joining us today. Welcome to NewsX World. How significant is that the Iran-Israel conflict has emerged as the top agenda item at the G7 summit now?
Yes, thank you very much for having me. Yeah, this is the latest in terms of the uncertainties that has emerged on the global scene. Over the last 3, 4, 5 years, of course, it started with COVID-19 pandemic, then we have the Russia-Ukraine conflict, then we have the Israel-Hamas, and now Israel-Iran war. So that is the latest, and I'm sure that is going to be the top of the agenda as far as G7 talks are concerned, and even the interaction of G7 countries with the other outreach countries, in which the Indian Prime Minister will also be reaching there, Canada today. So that is something that is very important both for peace, security, and stability, but also for global economic growth, because as we have seen, the prices of energy have been rising over the last 3 days. And the worst to be affected are the developing countries, and India would project the sentiments and the concerns, anxieties of the global south. So this is definitely an issue that will be on the top of the agenda, both for its political as well as economic ramifications.
And how might President Trump's presence and posture at the summit signal about U.S. intentions with the West Asia crisis?
Yeah, I think President Trump has been quite vocal and clear. He has lent full support to Israel, but you know, there needs to be an end to the war. He's also threatened Iran that if any of the American personnel who are based, about 50, 60,000 of the US soldiers who are based in that region, if they get attacked, if they are their security in any way is compromised, then Iran will have a heavy price to pay. So at least for now, the war is limited between Israel and Iran. But President Trump could impress upon Israel to stop after much damage has been, significant damage has been done on the Iranian nuclear ambitions and nuclear enrichment plants and missile production units. After much of that is done, President Trump could impress upon Israel, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, to stop it, so that some sort of negotiated settlement on the nuclear ambitions of Iran in terms of how it can use the nuclear energy for peaceful purposes, that can be arrived at.
And now shifting focus to Canada and UK economic ties. Now that what does strategic value does new UK-Canada Economic and Trade Working Group hold? And from what we know, that they held talks today in the sidelines of the G7 summit.
Yeah, trade and tariffs are a very important issue for not only Canada and the United Kingdom, but for a large number of countries, because of the uncertainties that have been introduced by President Trump's trade policies and tariff threats. And we see that they have been paused till the 9th of July. But 9th of July is just around the corner. So I think definitely countries will be speaking about that. And these countries have also suffered as a result of the Russia-Ukraine, to the fact that the United Kingdom has not been able to take cheap energy, oil and gas from Russia for the last 3.5 years. So that has impacted adversely on its economic strength. And so all these countries in Europe, including the UK, France, Germany, they are facing the impact of that. And Canada also, because it has been faced with tariffs from the United States. So that will definitely, that is an issue that both these countries will work together. and of course also in terms of support that they have to provide to Ukraine. And that is a continuing feature. Prime Minister Keir Starmer has taken a leadership role as far as the assistance and support to Ukraine after what President Trump has said. He is not fully engaged, he's not fully invested in that. So that is also an important issue that will be discussed at the G7 and also between Canada and the United Kingdom and some of the other countries.
Now I want to include India to this light. How might India view the G7 stance on the Middle East, given its own relationship with both Israel and Iran, and increasingly good relationship that we just saw recently with Prime Minister Modi visiting Saudi Arabia?
Yes, India has excellent relations with all the countries in the region, and India has its own stance. Your viewers and listeners would recall that India did not join the SCO consensus in which they had condemned Israel for these attacks. Basically, we want the approach to be of dialogue and diplomacy so that there are negotiations that are held and peace is restored. By condemning or criticizing just one party, it doesn't help matters at all. This is the same stance we had taken as far as the Russia-Ukraine conflict is concerned. And so we would promote dialogue and diplomacy, and so that many of these countries, they were erstwhile signatories also to the JCPOA, whether it is UK, France, Germany, and the United States. Of course, these are all, they had signed the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. So we would impress upon them that this war needs to come to an end as quickly as possible, because in addition to the risk and the threat and danger of it expanding and involving other countries of the region, the impact it is having, particularly on developing countries, is very debilitating. And so this war really needs to be ended as quickly as possible.
And now, building on your answer, should India interpret these new defense alignments, especially UK, Australia, EU, as exclusionary or complementary to India's stance?
I think all these stands are complementary to each other. India is on the same wavelength. We are on the same footing, same plane as these countries, because they would also want, none of them wants that we should have a nuclear Iran. No one wants, nuclear weapon equipped Iran. All countries want that there should be, if Iran is pursuing peaceful use of nuclear energy, that under the NPT, it is a signatory of NPT, so it should be permitted to do that, of course, under checks and observation monitoring of the IAEA, International Atomic Energy Agency. But otherwise, war is not a way to go forward. And developing nuclear weapons is also not going to promote security and stability in the region. So we need security and stability in the region. We need to ensure that Iran does not go the nuclear weapons way, and we need the war to stop as soon as possible.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Ashok Sajjanhar, for joining us and bringing your expertise to our conversation. Now we move on to our next story. Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian has called for national unity amid escalating Israeli strikes, urging all factions to set aside differences and stand together against what he called genocidal aggression. These statements come as Iran launched a fresh salvo of missiles on Israel, striking Tel Aviv, Haifa, and Jerusalem in the early hours of Monday. Israel's emergency services confirmed 4 dead and over 70 injured. One residential building in Haifa was hit directly. Sirens wailed as families took shelter in bunkers and subways. Fire broke out near a power plant in northern Israel. Missiles breached Israel's Iron Dome, damaging residential blocks in central cities. Iran's Revolutionary Guard say the strikes successfully hit targets in Israel. Officials warn of more devastating attacks to come. In response, Israel's Air Force struck Iran's Quds Force headquarters in Tehran. These sites were reportedly used to plan operations through proxies. The Israeli military also confirmed strikes on surface-to-surface missile sites in central Iran. IDF jets remain active over Iranian airspace. Israel says the intelligence chief of Iran's Revolutionary Guards, Mohammad Kazemi, was killed in a targeted strike. Tehran says 224 people have died in Israeli strikes since Friday, most of them being civilians. Iran has accused Israel of attacking its foreign ministry. It says it will not negotiate under fire. The region remains on high alert. The European Union Commission President Ursula von der Leyen says Iran must never acquire nuclear weapons. After speaking to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, she expressed and stressed both sides agree on that. She added a negotiated solution remains the best long-term path for peace. Here's what Ursula von der Leyen has said.
Iran should never acquire nuclear weapons. So in the call with Prime Minister Netanyahu, he described the situation. We were both, of course, aligned in the fact that Iran should not have nuclear weapons without any question. Of course, I think a negotiated solution is, in the long term, the best solution.
Meanwhile, the U.S. President Donald Trump, before departing for the G7 summit, said Iran and Israel may need to fight it out before a deal can be reached, though he maintained that Washington continues to support Israel's right to defend itself. Here's what the U.S. president has said.
Well, I hope there's going to be a deal. I think it's time for a deal, and we'll see what happens. But sometimes they have to fight it out, but we're going to see what happens. I think there's a good chance there'll be a deal.
Have you asked Israel to pause their airstrikes into Iran?
Well, I don't want to say that.
A senior U.S. official confirmed Trump vetoed an Israeli plan to assassinate Iran's supreme leader Ali Khamenei. French President Emmanuel Macron dismissed the idea of Russia mediating, citing Moscow's ongoing violations in Ukraine. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and Macron have also said their countries did not participate in Israel's operations against Iran. Here's what Starmer has said.
And Iran is centrepiece, and this provides the opportunity to talk to our co-leaders about the fast-moving situation and to make our strong case together that there must be de-escalation of this conflict in the interests of the region and of course.
Now we have guests joining us for this discussion. Jayant Krishna, Senior Fellow from Center for Strategic and International Studies. Thank you, Jayant, for joining us today. Welcome to NewsX World. How serious is the threat of regional war following Israel's strikes and Iran's retaliation now? And what would escalation mean for global terror networks?
It's the war is entering a deadly phase. As I've always said, that nobody ever wins a war, and the entire international community have to persuade both Israel and Iran to back off from a dangerous war that could be a huge drag. See, Israel initially started with some airstrikes against Iran. They initially targeted the nuclear facilities, then the military establishments, and finally, they have also attacked the oil and gas refineries. Iran obviously has also retaliated with missile strikes. So I think it's very unfortunate, and more unfortunate because this has happened at a time when Iran and US were negotiating, about the future of Tehran's nuclear program, And if you look at neither the International Agency, Atomic Energy Agency, nor the US Director of National Intelligence have said with any evidence that, Iran has an atomic bomb. And of course, the International Atomic Energy Agency has said that Iran is not providing full data, So I think it is a very unfortunate situation that this has happened, and we all see a very helpless United Nations, and they have become rather ineffective. So I think the powers that be, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization has already condemned Israel, and largely the two powerful countries there being China and Russia. India is somehow very, very non-committal so far, and it has neither backed, the SCO resolution, nor did it back the UN move earlier, asking Israel to end the war in Gaza, So I think it's really unfortunate, and eventually, if it is not stopped, it will have a major impact, not only on the oil pricing, international oil pricing, the trade routes will be adversely affected, the airspace, sea routes, everything will be affected. So I think sanity should prevail, and all nations, although Israel does have a tactical support from the US, but all nations must ensure that this war does not become a drag, because as I said earlier, nobody ever wins a war.
And then now we have seen Israel and Iran's tension it has been boiling for a while now. And how is the new wave of strikes different from the past confrontations between Israel and Iran?
So from whatever information we have as of now, I think the intensity of strikes has increased, and earlier, as I said, the prime target were nuclear facilities and military establishments. Now, in the latest round, Israel has also targeted the oil and gas refineries, and some of the buildings in Israel, which Iran had hit back, also had normal residents and normal citizens residing there. So I think, it becomes very, very difficult to draw the boundaries when such a war is happening. And civilian casualties also happen, and in this case also it has happened on both sides. So I think, as I said, it is doing no good to either of these two countries or the region. And at a time when the Russia-Ukraine war is far from over, the world can ill afford such a huge degree of hostilities between Israel and Iran, and so I think every sane statesman, international leader must prevail upon both the nations to stop the war. President Trump has said that they would stop the war, giving the example of India and Pakistan. He would make them stop. But when does it stop? Timing is very important. The sooner it stops, the better, and the lesser will be the casualties, and lesser would be the damage on both sides.
Thank you very much, Jayant Krishna, for bringing your expertise from Center for Strategic and International Studies. Thank you very much. Now, well, that's all we have time for. We will continue to bring more news updates from around the world.